Okay, in today's episode, we are speaking to Mr. Tom himself, who has a company, and it's about citizenship quickly. And I found Tom's work actually because I was doing a lot of my own research about second passports, alternative citizenship. And so we're going to be diving deeply into that entire process. And we are going to be doing a deep dive into the tax system, second passports, and a lot of fascinating information. Now, make sure you hit the like button on this side or that side right over there to send this video out to more people in the YouTube universe. I want to give a shout out to our channel sponsor, which is Vizsla Silver. So if you're looking for a gold or silver mining stock, be sure to check out Vizsla Silver. And it's nice to see you, Tom.
Nice to see you too, Jake. I
So
appreciate you inviting me there.
So I was amazed when we were talking before. I didn't realize you're a true original to this second passports global citizen type of thing because you said you did this 14 years ago. So I can't imagine you had that much support 14 years ago for this, huh?
Well, actually, when I did it, there was very few people, that were actually doing it at that point. It was just a few years later. In fact, I think actually when I got it, there was no charge at the passport offices to get out. And then they came out. I think the first year it was around 450 US, and then it went up to about 2,350 US. I got a feeling they're going to keep raising it way up with the new administration they've got now because they really don't like a lot of people doing this. It's the U.S. really should do away with their taxation based on citizenship because it's the only country in the world other than India that does it. But it's the only country that really enforces the laws on it. But it's I think the government's going to come out with a lot more measures, and there's going to be a lot stricter on getting out of your U.S. citizenship. And I think you're going to see a lot of countries like the EU, they're going to come in and they're going to try to copy what the U.S. has done because there's a lot of EU members that are living overseas that aren't paying taxes because they're not residents of those EU countries. And the EU is losing all that taxes on these people. So I think what they're going to do is the easiest way to do that is just change the laws and make it like the U.S. and start taxing people based on their citizenship. When that happens, it's the easiest, quickest way to pick up literally billions of dollars. I don't think you're actually going to see a single country come out in the EU. I think the EU is going to make it a mandated law within the whole universe of EU countries that to be an EU member, you're going to have to do this. I mean, they're already pushing a lot of policies now on Malta. They don't like Malta's citizenship by investment program. They were instrumental in canceling Cyprus's. They want to get these countries out of the citizenship by investment. They see it as a way for people to, legally get around taxes. The ones they hate the most are the ones that you don't have to have residency in, like Portugal. You have to have residency, but you can literally avoid the tax because you don't have to be there long enough to be taxed on that residency to be where you're paying taxes on worldwide income. So in essence, that's not a citizenship by investment. That's a residency by investment program. And the EU doesn't like that, especially the ones that let you avoid having physical residency there, to get the passport because they're not getting the tax dollars out of the person before, you get the passport. So, this is what I see happening. India just changed their tax laws dealing with this too. They hated. I was in Dubai for a while. A lot of Indians that come there, very successful Indians, that can literally avoid India's high taxes by going to places like Dubai that doesn't have any income tax. So now India's, if you can go on one of our videos that we had, India's wanting to tax those people now that go to Dubai that keep their citizenship as an Indian and work in Dubai and pay literally no income tax. And there's a lot of them that are making millions of dollars to avoid taxes by living there. And what they don't see is if they would try to be more competitive, they could bring those people back. The competition should be on who can keep the tax the lowest, not trying to put all these pressure on these countries like they've done with Belize, and Costa Rica now has caved in. Now Costa Rica has, they went from a territorial tax system to a tax in residence on their worldwide income. And they did this because actually they just recently took a bailout from the IMF, and that was part of the requirement. And usually what happens is the IMF usually gives countries a choice of paying that back either through a VAT or through changing their income tax where they can raise more money in taxes. And Costa Rica made the stupidest decision. They did just the opposite of what St. Kitts did. What they did was they decided to come out with a taxation based on not territorial tax system, but on worldwide income. So now what's happened is they think that's going to raise more taxes. Now a lot of wealthy people won't move there. And what that's doing is it's going to stifle the revenue that's raised there because wealthy people don't want to be taxed on their worldwide income. They just can't figure that out. They'll figure it out as time goes on. St. Kitts did just the opposite. Neither party wanted to come out with an income tax. They had the same bailout, and we were just talking about this earlier, where their debt was around 156% of their public debt, and they actually reduced it in 2005 to about 2019, 60%. Now it's it's roughly around 60%. So it went from 156 to 60%. It used to be the highest public debt rate of any country in the world except for Japan. And here's a country that lowered their debt. Think about this. They lowered their debt 60% without raising the income tax. And when they came out with this VAT, everybody in the country went nuts because it was also on food and drugs. And instantly they took it off the food and drugs because you got to remember when you raise the taxes on everybody, not just the top 1%, man, I mean, people, that's when you get crucified. And that's what happened here. That's good. That's good because then everybody feels it.
Yeah.
Right? And they came back and they got really pissed off. The government instantly said, hey, and you got to remember what the government does is going to revert into votes later on. So if you come in here and you do things that's going to hit everybody, okay, you're going to have trouble in the next election. And they know that. And that's smart thinking there because that's the thing I like about this country is what they do, it affects everybody. So the government comes and they keep out stupid policies that tax people based on their work ethic. And it just doesn't make sense. And like I said, St. Kitts lowered their debt. They did it 60%. And think about this. They have no income tax, no capital gains tax, no estate tax, no inheritance tax. And think about this. When I came here, I couldn't believe that St. Kitts did this. If you're a citizen of St. Kitts and you're at least 60 years old and you're a national, okay, you could go into the government clinics here for dentistry and you can get your teeth cleaned, you can get cavities filled, and it's free. No income tax, no capital gains tax, no estate tax, no inheritance tax. At 62 years old, you can go in hospitals and you get almost all of your care paid for free unless you choose a semi-private or private room. And even then, it's fraction of what you'd pay in the U.S. if you do that. If you choose not to do that, virtually all of your hospital expenses are free. Now, you wonder how in the world, they don't even have this in the U.S., a country that taxes in some states as high as 50% or more. In California, they've just raised the taxes again, the state income tax. Now they want to come out with a wealth tax. And it's just insane. They think that's going to get wealthy people to gravitate there. It's going to do just the opposite. This is why Joe Rogan and other people have left California. I think Tesla did it for other reasons, not just taxes, but it's just killing their system, and they can't figure out why everybody's moving to Texas and Florida. I got better advice. Don't go to Texas or Florida. Get your butt and leave the U.S. and relinquish your U.S. citizenship if you want to get it to zero. You're not going to get it to zero going to Florida or Texas. Okay. And now you can, it does help, getting the foreign earned income exclusion because you can deduct, if it goes up each year, you can deduct up to around 108,000 per person or 216,000 per husband and wife. And you get the deductions off that. It's actually a little bit more than that. I'm just giving you round figures. And then, so you can literally leave the U.S., keep your citizenship and passport, use the foreign overseas exclusion. You got to qualify for it. You can't just leave the U.S. And then what you do is you can have your business totally tax free, depending on your income. If you got a lot of passive income, then you can, one or two choices you can do. You can either relinquish. Puerto Rico can also help too, but I'm advising people not to go to Puerto Rico because Puerto Rico now is they're trying to get statehood status. They've applied for this, and I think it's going to be soon. The reason I think it's going to be soon because the liberals in the U.S. know that most people in Puerto Rico vote liberal, and if they get Puerto Rico as a state of the U.S., it's going to increase the electoral votes the Democrats will have. So it's going to do nothing but help the Democrats. And they know if they're going to get it passed, they better do it while Biden's in office. And so this is what I'm telling you. If you want to take a chance in going to Puerto Rico, that's fine. But you might be doing international move, going all the trouble, hiring people, and then just pick up and leave again. I don't see the government maybe changing the foreign overseas exclusion. And let me tell you why that is. Not everybody, when they go overseas, goes to a place like St. Kitts and has the first, 216,000 roughly that's not taxed. A lot of people go to Germany where the taxes are actually higher in the U.S. So that overseas exclusion really doesn't help you when you go to high tax countries. So the U.S. knows that. I don't think they don't see that as a person getting around high taxes because, believe it or not, a lot of people that participate in foreign earned income exclusion are not going to tax havens. Some are, but most of them aren't. They're going to other countries just because maybe that's where their business or their job is, whatever. So I don't see them really changing that. Okay, and then they might modify it a little bit. They might try to dig into the tax havens and stuff like that. But that's why I say get used to being outside the U.S. Then if they come in with little gimmicks like that, then you have a choice if you want to relinquish. If you don't want to relinquish, then don't relinquish. If you do want to, that's up to you. Right now, the way the law is, you can go back and you can get a visa, go back if you want to do that. And right now, it's the governments, they're not putting any, I think they're going to have a hard time trying to come in and tell people that were ex-citizens of the U.S. That you can never come back to the U.S. I mean, I just don't see that happening. If they would have done it, they would have done it, I think, a long time ago. But I don't see that happening. But it's just a call you have to make. But the thing about living in St. Kitts is too, it's so close to the U.S. and Canada. We get a lot of U.S. people that come to U.S. To St. Kitts, and what they see is it's like going from St. Kitts to North Carolina or St. Kitts to Florida is like 3 or 4 hours. I mean, it takes 4 hours to go from North Carolina to California. So on a flight. So it's not that much difference. So people looking at, the time it gets from one place to another, it's not that much difference in going across the U.S. But the big thing is, the thing I like about St. Kitts is an English-speaking country. Okay. Now we do over 100 countries, and I'm always looking for a better deal. I have people get on here sometimes and they say, "Well, Tom, it sounds like you're just throwing St. Kitts at us all the time." Well, it's not that. I do other countries, and I compare the visa-free travel, the taxation. I compare a lot of different elements. So you have to pass a Spanish test or a language test to get the passport. You have to go through the military, getting risk of getting blown up, to get that passport. And do your children have to go through that? So these are key things you got to look at. St. Kitts, like I said, doesn't have a military requirement to get the fast track passport on you or your kids, and there's no language test that you have to go through. You get the passport, you can get as quick as 45 days. It's just got the whole ball of wax: no income tax, no capital gains tax, no estate tax, no inheritance tax. Now, a lot of people will say to me, well, Tom, I don't plan on moving to St. Kitts. I just want to get their passport. Well, a lot of people say that, but what happens is a lot of people get the passport. They'll go to a place like Panama, and they don't do their homework. They go to Panama and find out that Panama, they want to get, let's say, in the insurance business. They find out that you got to be a citizen to get an insurance business. And then they find out they switch to real estate. Well, they find out you can't do that unless you're a citizen of Panama. They go, what about retail? You can't do that either. So what they end up finding out is citizenship carries a lot of privileges. And see, Panama will tell you can move there, you can start a business, but what they don't tell you is when you go there are a lot of businesses they won't let you get into. And so this ends up wasting a lot of people's time, because what they end up doing is they move there and they find out, damn, I can't do this business. I can't do this business. I can't do this business. And the 5-year program of residency with Panama that you have to go through before you can apply for citizenship, nobody gets it in 5 years. The statutory requirements is 5 years. Count on 10 to 15, maybe even as far as 20 years to get the passport.
So let's talk a little bit about I'm in the middle of getting my St. Kitts passport, but I want to understand, and for someone listening, let's talk a little bit about if someone were to say, for whatever reason, one decided, whether it was taxes, the social political climate, they like another place more, they decided they wanted to renounce for whatever their reasons were, and they decided they didn't want to live in America anymore. Let's talk about the process of that specifically, because I've heard many things. I've heard it's as easy as going in there and you pay your $2,300. I've heard other people say, well, they have a retroactive back tax of X amount of years. Let's talk about the actual process of this. Like, let's say I've got my St. Kitts passport. I'm living wherever I'm living, whether it's in St. Kitts or I have residency in some other country that's outside of the US. And I said, now I want to renounce. So give me the understanding of this entire process, the details of it, the fees, is there back taxes? How does this all work? How often are people denied? Let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, first of all, there's a test to see what your net worth is, which is $2 million US. There's also other things they look at. And we don't do taxes for people, so we actually will send it to a tax person. But there are limits that you have, and Biden will probably change that limit, okay, on what your capital appreciation of your assets are at the time that you leave. So if it hits that threshold, over that threshold, what happens is you'll be taxed on that amount. And what I tell people to do is, if you're in it, especially if you're in a business where you're also, you have to file a tax form. It's 88. It's like a book that you have to disclose that. You have to disclose assets and stuff. And also, they'll ask you if you've filed your taxes the last 5 years. If you have not, then you're going to have a problem, because you're having to file those last 5 years of taxes. And that's in that form at the time that you do it. Also, what they'll do is there's about 2 or 3 interviews, depending on your situation. They'll also ask you if you're crazy when you do it. I mean, that's one of the questions they ask you. They ask you if you're sane of mind, and which is kind of a little bit funny when they ask you that. And that's basically in it. And some people have also asked, I heard one person get on YouTube video, but this is incorrect. They'll also, this one person was told that you would not qualify for Social Security, and that's wrong. If you've got 40 quarters in on Social Security, you still qualify for your Social Security benefits, just like anybody else. I mean, this is like someone that's going, gets a green card, and they go to the U.S. and they live there and they qualify. They paid in taxes for 40 years or 40 quarters on their Social Security. Then even if those people give up their green card and leave, they can still qualify for those, for Social Security, because they paid in the system for 40 quarters. So that's not going to have any effect. Medicare is effective, because you also have to go. Medicare is you have to get it done in U.S. hospitals to begin with. So if you relinquish, that will end. But I'll be honest with you, even with what Medicare picks up, it's still cheaper getting your health care done outside the U.S. But the process will take you now is a little bit different because of COVID-19. You got all these embassies that are backed up. I can't tell you the length of time it's going to take because we're in a different time period. But I can tell you, when the time period when I was looking at, it took a year to actually process everything. This is when you didn't have a ton of people going through this. So you're looking at, it could be a year and a half now with all this stuff going on, because it might be 2 or 3 years, depending on how long this COVID-19 goes and gets everything backed up. So there's no really time period that I can give you on that because of what's going on right now. My suggestion is, if you're thinking about doing it, I would do it sooner rather than later because of this time period to get back, to get out of your citizenship, because you're having to depend on, you can't just leave and say I've relinquished. You're depending on that passport office to go through this procedure to get this done. And so if you're lingering on this, it could be years down the road, possibly, to get totally out. I'm talking about the time you apply, the time you get out of it. And you're going to have to fulfill those tax requirements before you leave. And there also is a time period from the time you actually, that your passport, your relinquishment actually occurred to the front of that year. So if your relinquishment goes through in, let's say, in June, and you still have taxes from that you didn't maybe file from the first of the year to the time you actually got out. So you're going to have to declare that too. Is how that works. But as far as your amounts you're going to end up paying, and I think you're going to see a change on that this year. It depends on your assets and the tax laws at that point in time. But if your income is growing really fast, I would tell you to do it sooner rather than later, because what's going to happen is, you're probably going to hit the threshold. It's based on income and assets. So you're probably going to hit that threshold as your income goes up higher and higher and higher. You're more likely to hit those thresholds, depending on what the thresholds are at the time you get out. So I would tell people, if you're really thinking about doing it and you're just on the edge of that diving board and you're trying to figure out, should I do this, should I not? I mean, I thought about it too for a long time. Okay. I think what you should probably do is take your business, go overseas, qualify for the foreign earned income exclusion, be used to being outside the U.S., because now you're seeing what it's going to be like when you relinquish, except when you relinquish, you can't go back unless you get a visa. Okay. So then you're going to, you're in a position to where you can actually, make a more logical decision when you won't regret it. I've never regretted it, not even for 30 seconds. I mean, it has not even crossed my mind. And so if you're thinking about that, of course, I had a long time to think about it before I did it. So, and there are a lot of people who've done this in the past that are, John Templeton, who's died. I don't know if you've heard of John Templeton. He's one of the best investors that ever lived. Mark Mobius did it years ago. There's a lot of people that
I didn't know that Sir John Templeton did that. He did that.
Yeah, he did it. He was actually one of the first renowned people that he did it back in the 1960s.
Wow.
Well, the reason he did it, I mean, this guy was, he moved, actually, he started his business in I think it was the 1940s or 50s. He started in New York. And New York has always had high taxes. And back when he was paying taxes back in the 1960s, and the brackets were as high as 90%. They had them actually over 90%. So, I mean, basically, you were losing everything you had pretty much over that bracket. Okay. Wow. The government took everything. And he moved to Florida, which helped him because it didn't have a state income tax. But he also figured, gee, why don't I just move outside the U.S. and relinquish and just dissolve it all, And I actually became pretty good friends with John Templeton. We used to market a lot of his mutual funds, the Templeton Group. And I actually talked to him back in 1995, 96. He was still alive then. The nicest fellow you'll ever meet. And we started talking and stuff. And I told him, I realized that he had relinquished years ago. And we started talking. And I said, I know that when you sold the Templeton Group to Franklin Templeton, you saved a bunch in capital gains tax. And he told me, he says, Tom, there's a lot of stuff in the press on this, but people don't realize that all these payments that are coming to me, about, I think he said 30% was withheld. Okay. So remember, that was a U.S. company that he sold. So the key is you can't just get yourself out. You need to get your assets out too. But he knew that. I mean, this guy was a Yale grad, and he was a very smart fellow. But he was there almost the same time my dad was there, and I think my dad was there right before he was. And he knew that he needed to move out as much as he could, which he did. And then, but he still kept the Templeton Group, which was in St. Petersburg, Florida. And then he sold that to Franklin Templeton Group. And he did this, and he was a very smart person. And one of the things he told me, he says, Tom, I can make decisions now not based on when to sell something, based on the tax consequences. I can sell it when I want to. And this had a lot of sense to it, because a lot of people think, should I be selling something at the end of the year, or should I wait until the next year when these new tax laws are coming into place? I'm going to save X amount. He didn't have to think about that. Okay. And also, he had the choice to pick and choose the equities to go in countries that had no withholding taxes. This is something else. There's approximately 21 countries in the world that have a no withholding tax. And people think when you relinquish, you're going to actually get your taxes to zero. Actually, you can pay a lot more in income taxes when you relinquish than when you don't relinquish. Let me give you some examples. Everybody thinks that Switzerland is a big tax haven. Well, if you buy a stock in Switzerland like Nestle, there's a 35% withholding tax on that stock. So they don't care whether you're a citizen or not. You're going to have that 35% taken out, whether you're a citizen, a resident of St. Kitts or not. That doesn't make any difference. Okay. So what makes a difference is now you've relinquished your ties to the U.S. by relinquishing your U.S. citizenship. Now you're free to choose and pick what you want, where you want your money to go, and stop the tax. You can't do that with the U.S. Let me give you an example. You're a U.S. citizen and you pick a country that doesn't have withholding tax, like Hong Kong, Singapore, UK, believe it or not, doesn't have a withholding tax to foreigners. Then you can do that if you're non-U.S. Citizen or resident, and not be having a tax on that money. But if you're a U.S. citizen, if you go and invest in a place that doesn't have a withholding tax, like Singapore, Hong Kong, UK, there's 21 countries approximately that don't have that, then you can avoid it if you're not a U.S. citizen. And what I always tell people, it's like Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett, when he picks a stock, he doesn't know if that stock's going to go up or down. He's just like anybody else. He's smarter than your average person in investing, but he doesn't know if the stock's going to go up. But why not pick a stock in a place where you know 110% that there's no tax in there? That's automatically putting you ahead of the game. Okay. Then pick your equities in those countries that don't have a withholding tax, because you already have the game. You know that you're not going to lose 20 or 30 or 35% like in Switzerland. So pick those stocks and those equities in areas that don't have withholding tax, because then you've automatically saved 20, 30, 35% of your money, guaranteed. Okay. You pick a stock, you don't know what a stock's going to do. Okay. It could go up, or it could go down. I saw where recently Buffett bought a Barrick Gold. Everybody piled into Barrick Gold. Right after they found it, he bought it. And it went up, and then it just caved in. And it's been close to around 20 in the Canadian market there. And so, he doesn't know what a stock's going to do. Stocks he picks can go down. Okay. But it wouldn't be nice to pick a stock where you know there's 100% that you're not going to lose any money as far as taxes go on that. Because now capital gains, I don't know of any country in the world that taxes foreigners on their capital gains. Most countries do have a withholding tax, though, on dividends, except for those 21 countries. So like I said, moving out of the U.S., relinquishing your U.S. citizenship doesn't get your taxes to zero. What you're going to have to do is you're going to have to go in, you're going to have to find those areas and concentrate in those areas. And by the way, too, I looked from the last 50 years, from the last time I checked, it was from 1969. This came out maybe in the last year. The Hang Seng Index has outperformed the S&P 500 index. That's the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, which, by the way, none of the Hong Kong stocks on that exchange are have a withholding tax on dividends. And even the ones in China, there's only a 10% withholding tax.
All right, so fair enough. Tell me this question now: why do this? And I hear everything you're saying, but let's talk about from the perspective that I'm sure you've heard, which is, it is un-American, or you are, a traitor, or, I've had, heard people say, I'm not leaving, I'm staying right here. So tell me the answer to that, your answer to that question of, when someone says, because immediately there's resistance in a couple ways, and I'm sure you've encountered, you've been doing this a long time. There's one level of resistance where people say, is this illegal? And we're talking about just a totally legal leaving your country and moving to another country. But then let's talk about when someone says it's unpatriotic, or it's un-American, or you're a traitor. Address that for me.
Well, first of all, you don't have to take it from me. You can go just do a Google search and put foreign earned income exclusion, and you'll pull it right up. The first thing that comes up is the IRS dealing with the foreign earned income exclusion. Read it up yourself. It's that exclusion goes up every year. You can look at the limits. It gives you the deductions. It's not just the exclusion. You get write-offs on top of that. So there's a lot of, you can do Google searching too on relinquishing U.S. citizenship. My advice is to get professional advice, but also don't just depend on that. Learn yourself. And as far as patriotic, I've never had this at all. I've watched Roger Ver, which I like Roger Ver a lot, because I like his libertarian views are so much close to mine. And one of the things he brings up is this thing about the what's patriotic, fighting for your country. I look at this Vietnam War. That was a lot of patriotic people fought in that war. And Roger Ver was talking about, this military stuff, that, forcing people to go into a military for ridiculous reasons. And I think the Vietnam War was, even the ones that were for the Vietnam War, I can't imagine anybody who's pro-Vietnam War today. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. 58,000 people, patriotic people, died in this war. And, the thing was that the people took off and left. Now people are calling them smart. Look at what happened to Muhammad Ali. People looking at him as being smart. And I totally agree. He of course, he did it for religious reasons. His whole thing, why should I go over and kill somebody that had done anything to me? Okay. His whole thing is, why don't I just wait till they come to my back door with a gun? Because the likelihood somebody from Vietnam getting on a plane, coming to my door with a shotgun and shooting me, I think I'd rather wait for that instead of going and getting this grandiose idea that some Vietnamese is going to become a communist and come over and kill me. That's just stupid thinking. And the problem is we had people like McNamara at that point even admitted after the war was over with, it was a huge mistake. And I'm thinking, what a dummy. Why would someone say that after 58,000 people died? Why didn't he say something about that when the war was going on? He could have saved a ton of lives and just stopped the war. And guess what? We left. No one won the war. Okay. Everybody left. They were chasing the guys out on the helicopters. That was the last scenery. And guess what? Vietnam is still not a totally free country. It is freer than it was back then. It's still basically a communist country. They do have a stock exchange there. But the thing is now we get along with the Vietnamese fine. But what about the 58,000 people that died? The same results we would have today if those 58,000 people had not died. So I would say the ones that were unpatriotic were the ones that I would look up to. And I also look up to the ones that fought in the war too that died. But I'm thinking, if those people could look back and see the results of what happened, they wouldn't go through the same process again. And if I had been drafted, I had a high number back then as far as drafting. I would have gone. My sense of thinking now is a lot different than back then. My brother went. He fought in the Vietnam War, and he had a close call. Shrapnel came in the wall behind him. He was lucky he didn't die, but he had loads of friends that died over there, and it was a big disaster. There's so many wars that are fought because of patriotism. If you don't fight them, then you're a loser. You're unpatriotic. I don't believe in that. I believe that if I feel there's a threat and someone's coming to my back door and they're coming over and that's the type of threat, that's different. Okay, but just to go over and fight a war that's overseas that nobody's done anything to us, you're just getting stuff in your mind that is just basically stinking thinking. It's just going to get a lot of people killed. And to me, I don't believe in that concept. I'm a real libertarian on that. I think the government should stay out of our business, not just on military requirements. I think they should stay out of our business on making money. I think they should have a system like St. Kitts. St. Kitts has got the most perfect system in the world. Is it totally 100% perfect? No. People come down here and they'll say, Tom, it's just slow down here. It's where's all the New York shopping? Well, would you rather live in New York and lose 50 to 60% of your money in taxes than come to a quiet place where you might be 100 years old and keep 100% of your money? When I say 100%, I'm talking about income tax, capital gains tax, estate tax. And by the way, too, St. Kitts, to clarify this, does have a capital gains tax, but it's only enforced for 1 year. It's 20%. If you wait after a year, there is no capital gains tax. Okay, and there's almost no property tax. It's like 0.20% of whatever you find, and you got a $29,000 exclusion that comes off that before that property tax kicks in. And but I'll tell you something. I'm a lot more patriotic here than I ever was in the U.S. because I support and I like what they got here. The country here has got a smart system. They're not only smart, they've proven with the smart VAT system they got, they can lower the VAT 60%. I'm watching this thing gradually go down to zero without an income tax. And they can still have good social programs. A lot of liberals say, you won't have any social programs. St. Kitts has probably got more social programs than the U.S. When I was in the U.S., I didn't get my teeth cleaned free. I didn't get cavities put in free. Okay. So you can still have social programs and still have freedom on taxes. The government of the U.S. just hasn't figured it out. They need to study St. Kitts a little bit, I think. That's the problem, is the government in the U.S., they've got this liberal mindset and it's gradually destroying the U.S. If this debt's not paid down, and it's not just me, you listen to other smart people. Jimmy Rogers is a big advocate on this. It's a math problem. Look at the debt. If you eventually get it paid off, the dollar will collapse. And it won't be politicians making the decision. You're going to have a lot of people out in the street basically going nuts because now the economy's in shambles. And decisions we've made in the future based on what's going to get us out of this mess. Because it's going to be like Germany. After World War II, take pictures of Berlin. When it was over with, the whole place was just in shambles. And everybody knew that Nazism was a crime. It was a devil's decision, and there was no way they were changing their ways. And they basically outlawed Nazism there. And so this is it's going to come to this. I think in the U.S. I think the U.S. is going to have to go into total collapse because politicians won't actually go in. Trump didn't do it. I like some of Trump's policies, but Trump never lowered the debt. He increased it tremendously when he was in office. And nobody's going to vote for anyone who wants to take care of the debt because you're going to have to reduce all these pork belly programs. And the people that want the freebies and the handouts, they're not going to vote for that. Okay. They're not looking for the shambles down the road. They're looking for the freebies and the handouts now. But who's going to be affected by this if they live long enough, is either them, their children, their grandchildren. The debt's going to have to get paid down, okay? And what's going to happen eventually is you're going to see a lot of people moving out the U.S. that are wealthy, picking countries. They're going to get passports in St. Kitts if they're smart, because St. Kitts has the best program. It's quicker, it's cheap, it's you can live here and work here. And if you don't get citizenship, it's very difficult to come here or any other country like Panama and places and work in any business that you want to get involved with. So this is the thing that I tell people is if you want a good insurance policy, get a second passport. And if you want to lower your taxes, take it in stepping stones, get outside the U.S., forget the patriotism, get outside the U.S., start your business with a foreign income exclusion, and start testing the waters that way. That's the best way to do it. So if this thing all starts to crumble, you got all your dominoes in row, okay? And it's not like you're going to panic. You need to set a pathway to do this. And like your business, for instance, is a perfect business for to do the foreign income exclusion, because your business can be done anywhere in the world. That's the great thing about it. And I always tell people, even if you're in a business that, let's say a dentist in New York, and he's got all his clients coming to him that's local there. He's got a tough business to do internationally offshore. But what I would tell him, he can take his knowledge and expertise and do something that's outside the country. Now, how would he do that? Number one is he could go in, he could sell dental equipment or medical equipment. That's one way you can actually do that, and probably make more money than what he's doing before, and not have to pay the income tax if he's not a U.S. citizen, or if he wants to qualify for foreign earning income exclusion, he can do that. So the part on patriotism, the way I look at it, forget the patriotism. I used to call my congressman all the time. That's not going to do any good. There's no difference between the Democrats and the Republicans. Tax-wise, it's like this.
Yeah.
Okay? You're not going to get anything done. You're just wasting your time. Going to Florida is going to help you, but it's like this. Okay? What's going to make a big change is where you make the move, make the big change. Get outside the U.S. You don't have to relinquish. Forget the patriotism. Get outside the U.S. Get your business going that way. And then if you see that your business is going good and you get used to flying back to the U.S., then your next step is just file the forms to relinquish. You can still get the visa and come back just like you were doing before. Okay? So nothing's changed. But you're going to have a lot of people that are going to hold to this patriotism, and I think you're going to have to get to the point you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, and you're going to take the patriotism and throw it out the window. And you're going to say, I'm sick of this. I've given the government chances to lower the taxes. They're not doing it. I'm interested in what's good for me and my family, and make the move. That's the only way to do it.
Powerful stuff. So for everyone listening, we are going to put Tom's website right there down below for those that want to check it out. Citizenship Quickly, right there down below in the description. Make sure you hit the like button on this video on this side or this side to send us out into the YouTube universe so more people see this video. If there's some things you'd like us to discuss in a future episode, be sure to leave it in the comments right there down below. Tom, I want to thank you for coming on, and definitely a lot to think about.
Thank you too, Jake. I appreciate that.